Hi everyone and welcome back to your Philippine Politics and Governance. Again, this is Mr. Krippe Anthony A. Ramos, and for this session, we'll be discussing about your executive department or your Article 7 of your 1987 Constitution. But before we start our session, now let's go ahead and have a recap with our preliminary discussions from the previous sessions. Okay, so we were able to discuss that our government actually has three co-equal branches, which is the executive, legislative, and judiciary. And as they are called co-equal, so meaning, no, walang mas mataas nor mas mababa doon sa kanilang tatlo. Ibig sabihin, ang executive, legislative, and judiciary, sila ay magkakapantay. So why is it designed to be like that? So just like what we were able to discuss with the evolution of our Philippine politics and governance, so definitely they are created, or there are three branches in order for us to have the principle of check and balance. So what happens in the principle of checks and balance? So definitely, if a department is actually abusing their capacities or responsibilities, so it will be the obligation of the other departments to look into the abuse of that department. Okay, so later on we will be able to see and talk about that. Okay, but now let's go ahead and have a look into your Article 7 of your 1987 Constitution, again also known as your executive department. Or in Filipino, ito yung tinatawag natin noon nung elementary na ehekutibo. Okay, so let's go ahead and have a look into your executive department. So as it is being called executive department, okay, executive department exercises executive power. And we define executive power as the power to administer the laws, which means carrying them into practical operation and enforcing their due to observance. In Filipino class, ang executive power daw, sa madaling salita, ito daw yung pagpapatupad ng batas. Take note ha, hindi ka gumagawa ng batas, bagkus ikaw ay nagpapatupad ng batas kung ikaw ay parte ng ehekutibong departamento. Okay? So anong ginagawa mo doon? Yung mga ginawang batas, definitely your executive officials, they will put those laws into practical operation. So let me give you an example. So during the time we have the pandemic, no, yung kasagsagan na talagang sobrang sobrang boom na boom niya, and most especially nung nagkaroon tayo ng ECQ, no, gumawa ng batas yung Bayanihan Act, yung ating yung ating mga legislators kung tawagin natin o yung mga mambabatas natin na nagsasabi na kailangan magbigay ng ayuda sa mga kapaspalad natin ng mga kababayan or yung mga walang trabaho or mga wala ng trabaho. And hindi obligasyon ng mga mambabatas na ipatupad yung batas na yon. So sino nagpatupad ng batas na yon? So definitely it is your executive officials. Okay? So let's go ahead and have this one continued. Alright, so you might be asking, Sir, kanino po nanggagaling executive power or kanino ibinibigay ng ating constitution yung executive power? So according to your section 1 of your Article 7, so the executive power class shall be vested in the President of the Philippines. So take note class that the primary person na mag-execute na itong executive power ay tinatawag nating Presidente. That is under your section 1. Okay? And to give you an insight, the President and Vice President are actually being elected nationwide for 6-year term. But with the President, there is no re-election. So plus, no, as you can see, definitely the President and Vice President would have a 6-year term. No? The only difference between the two would be, for the President, there would be no re-election. Ibig sabihin, isang beses lang siya pwedeng manungkulan. Whereas, if we're talking about the Vice President, so let's see for example, Vice President Leni Robredo, if just in case the Vice President would want to run again as Vice President on the coming 2022 election, she may still do so. Because with the Vice President, he or she can still run for 2 terms, or actually that is the maximum of 2 terms. So in simpler terms, the Vice President or a person can be Vice President for 12 years. Okay, so in comparison with our president, definitely there would be no re-election. So ibig sabihin, isang beses lamang siya. So class, with all of the things that we were able to experience, or all the situations that we were able to experience for the past few months, you are actually asking kung nasaan yung pangulo, nasaan yung vice pangulo, with regards to the power in executing the law, the main or the sole responsibility, or with the main responsibility, it is actually being vested to the President of the Philippines. Okay? So siya ang meron dapat kapangyarihan para magpatupad ng batas, i-make sure halimbawa na na makita na okay yung lahat. And with that with that responsibility comes the accountability. Kung hindi niya magawa yun, so definitely siya talaga ang dapat masisi because ang pagpapatupad ng batas ay nagre-rest sa ating presidente. Now, let me clarify something muna, no? So because we're talking about the vice president then dito sa ating usapin ng executive power, no? So with the vice president, to give you an insight class, no? The vice president is also called as the spare tire. Okay, the spare tire of our country. Ibig sabihin, if you will be asking the Constitution kung anong gawain ng Vice Presidente, no, siya ay tinatawag na spare tire. Kung ano nakikita nyo na ginagawa ngayon ng Vice Presidente, say for example, tumutulong siya sa ibang tao, no, through yung mga ayuda, fundraising activities, kung tutuusin, that is not her responsibility. No? If ginagawa niya yon, no, we must be thankful because your Vice President is actually giving an extra mile for our country. No, na kung tutuusin, pwede naman siya magpahinga, pero kung may ginagawa siya, that would actually be good for your vice president. No, so yung pagtulong halimbawa, no, pagpunta sa lugar na nasalanta, so that's actually one good thing for a vice president. Kasi yung vice president, kung tutuusin, ang gawain niya lang ay maghintay kung kailan mawawala yung presidente or no, kung mapapalitan siya. Kasi kung sakali matanggal or may mangyari masama sa presidente, automatically your vice president would be assuming the position. At yun lang talaga yung primary responsibility niya. But you might ask as well, no, sir, bakit noong mga panahon ni Vice President Jejo Marbinay, panahon nila Vice President Noli de Castro, meron po silang ginagawa or meron silang distinct function, no? If you can go back to our history, no, with regards to your Philippine politics, no, or governance, no, during the administration of Pinoy and PGMA, no, so definitely inassignan ng mga pangulong yon, no, si GMA at si Noynoy, inassignan nila yung mga vice-presidente nila ng another cabinet post. Ibig sabihin, no, meron silang kanya-kanya nilang opisina bukod sa pagiging vice-presidente, and actually your constitution guarantees that. Pwedeng gawin yon kasi nga sinasabi natin na spare tire yung natin, no, yung vice-pangulo natin. So dahil spare tire siya, he or she actually has a lot of time na ibigay sana sa country natin. And luckily with the past administrations, Gloria and Noynoy, they were able to utilize the vice presidents. Okay, so they were in time of of Jejo Marbinay, no, most likely nasa housing siya, no, ginawa pa nga siya at some point na housing czar, no, na kung saan siya yung nagpapatupad ng ng mga polisiya ng presidente when it comes sa NHA, no, siya rin yung naatasan noon sa mga OFWs. That is why that time you can notice na medyo busy ang vice president natin. Same with Noli de Castro, no, na bigyan din siya ng nagbigyan din siya ng post when it comes to housing. That's why, no, nung time na yun talaga makikita niyo sila na gumagalaw. Unlike sa nangyayari ngayon, and unfortunately, no, so be mindful of this, no, as you can still recall, no, inoferan si Vice President Leni Robredo before, no, ng cabinet post, but you can still remember, no, na ang ginawa ng Duterte administration ay at some point hindi siya pinapa-attend ng meeting, no, which led to the for the vice president na mag-resign, no, kasi nga nagkaroon ng political differences, hindi na siya pinapatawag sa meeting, hindi siya sinasali sa meeting, and that is actually very crucial. Bakit? When you say kasi cabinet of the president, kailangan nandun siya because your cabinet members, they are also called as the alter ego of your president. Okay? So kung ano man yung ginagawa ng mga cabinet members or ng cabinet members, they are being reflected as the actions of the president. Now, kung hindi mo imbitahin yung mga cabinet members, definitely magkakaroon ka dyan ng problema. Okay? And that is actually what happened during the time of this administration. Another thing with what happened with the vice presidency, no, as you can recall, nag-offer yung opisina ng vice presidente natin na tumulong with regards sa anti-drugs campaign, no, and binigyan naman nila ng pagkakataon. But at some point nung nagkakaroon na ng investigation with regards to sa policies ng pagpapatupad ng anti-drugs, no, ng kampi ng ating administrasyon, bigla itong tinanggal. So that you can see there that talagang parang hindi ma-work out ng administrasyon na ito kung ano nga ba yung gustong gampanan ng vice presidente at ng iba pa nilang cabinet members. Okay? So much for that. We'll go ahead first and have a look to the qualifications of the president and the vice president. Okay? So let me go ahead and enumerate to you the qualifications of the President and Vice President according to your Section 2, Article 7. Okay, so first qualification would be a president or a vice president must be a natural-born Filipino citizen. And if you say natural-born Filipino citizen, no, we will be able to discuss this on our session as to your Article 4. But to give you an insight, a natural-born Filipino citizen, mas ito yung mga tao or mga Filipino na it's either pinanganak sila sa pinanganak sila na meron silang nanay or tatay na Filipino, no? So since we are upholding the jus sanguinis principle, or we are looking into the relationship by blood. Okay, so most common, if you have a mother or father na na Filipino, definitely you are a natural-born Filipino citizen. Okay, that person must also be a registered voter. Okay, the president and vice president shall also be able to read and write. At least 40 years of age would be the age requirement for our president and vice president. So class, please take note na hindi nyo pamantayan kung kailan siya nag-file ng candidacy. Kasi may mga pagkakataon na nagtatanong kayo, Sir, bakit po bakit po pinayagan na tumakbo itong kandidato na ito? 39 years old pa lang po siya ngayon. So say for example, 2021, doon yung filing ng candidacy for the presidency. Halimbawa, no? Tapos pa lang siya, 39 years old. So, pwede pa rin siyang tumakbo for as long as on the day of the election, no, at least 40 years of age ang kanyang edad. Okay? Huwag kayo malilito, hindi porket nag-file ka na ng nag-file ka ng candidacy, yun na ilalagay mo 39. Ang itatanong dun sa filing ng candidacy ay ilang taon ka pagdating ng election. Okay? So, pagdating ng election dapat at least 40. Do not answer na 40 years old yung requirement, ha? Ito ay kailangan at least, ibig sabihin, at least 40 pataas, no? Hindi lang siya 40 years old kasi pag sinabi yung 40 years old, no? 40 years old lang talaga siya. Pero our constitution said that at least 40 years of age, pwede kayong tumakbong pagka-presidente at vice-presidente. Okay? And lastly, that person must be a resident of the Philippines for at least 10 years immediately preceding the election. Again, class, ito ang usapin natin, no, kagaya nung kay kay Grace po, bakit siya na-question? Because may mga pagkakataon na umalis sila ng bansa. Okay? And to some extent, nung time na yon, ni-renounce pa raw niya yung may issue about renouncement of or renunciation ng kanyang Filipino citizenship, no? So it is quite crucial for us, no, to have a president na of course namirahan dito para alam niya yung kanyang yung kanyang irerepresenta pagdating ng araw, no? So say for example, if you are actually if you already satisfy all of the requirements aside from the last one, no, so to give you an insight, if say for example 2022 you will be running, okay, you intend to run, so definitely by 2012 dapat nandito ka na sa Pilipinas naninirahan. Okay? So, dapat tuloy-tuloy yun from 2012 up until 2022 nandito ka dapat, otherwise hindi ka ma-qualify as a candidate for the presidency. Okay? So that would be the qualifications of the president and vice president. And as you can notice, class, no, and most especially pagdating na ng filean, magtataka kayo bakit ang daming mga Pilipino, kahit yung mga ordinaryong Pilipino, pumupunta sa COMELEC para magparehistro. It is simply because ang ating constitution, wala silang sinasabi kung ano ba yung degree na kailangan mong kunin, no? Whether ikaw ay political scientist, ikaw ay doktor, no, ikaw halimbawa ay teacher, ikaw halimbawa ay estudyante, for as long as you satisfy all of the requirements, hindi na nila yung titignan. Okay? So in that sense, then, no, kaya siya nagkakaroon tayo ng mga dagsa-dagsang mga nagtatry, no, na file ng kanilang candidacy. Pero don't worry, class, kasi naman to nafi-filter naman ito ng COMELEC natin. Meron mga dinedeclare as nuisance candidate na kung saan, no, ito yung mga kandidato na hindi seryoso. No? So natatanggal din sila later on. So kagaya nung election natin noong 2016, bakit na ang natira lang ay si Duterte, no, si Mar Rojas, si Grace po, si Miriam Defensor Santiago, no? Bakit sila lang yung natira? And si Jaja Marbinay, it's because, no, na-filter na. So yung mga hindi seryoso tumakbo or nag-file ng candidacy, natanggal na sila out of that. Pero as a general rule, class, I would want you to know that hindi tinitignan yung inyong educational background. Kahit hindi ka nakapagtapos, pwede kang tumakbo sa presidency as long as you satisfy all of the requirements as stated in Section 2 of your Article 7. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead now and have a look to the powers vested upon the executive. And this is actually being exercised primarily by your president. So according to Section 16 class, the president has the power of appointment. So what is the power of appointment? So the president, from the word itself, can appoint the following: members of the constitutional commissions, ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls. So these are your foreign service officials, other officers of the AFP from the rank of colonel or navy captain. So ibig sabihin, since ang ating presidente rin ang tinatawag natin na na chief ng AFP, definitely pwede siyang magtalaga ng mga tao na kung saan mula sa rank ng colonel at saka navy captain pataas, pwede siyang mag-appoint, And then all other officers whose appointments are vested in the president under the 1987 Constitution. But take note, class, I've indicated there, the term of office of this appointed is coterminous with that of the president. The president also has the power to remove them from office. So, class, if say for example, si Sir Krippe halimbawa ay magiging presidente balang araw and pinagkatiwalaan kayo halimbawa ni Sir para magkaroon ng ng position sa government. Once na natanggal ako sa aking posisyon, tanggal din kayo. Or once, say for example, natapos na yung termino ko, tapos na rin yung termino ninyo. It's because coterminous yun. But sir, are there instances wherein pwede kami magstay? Pwede for as long as the next chief executive will be able to appoint you in the same position. Okay? But that would not be my my discretion. It will be the discretion of the succeeding president na. Okay? Also, class, the power to appoint will also include the power to remove. Since ako yung nagtalaga dyan sa inyong sa inyong posisyon, definitely ako lang din yung merong karapatan na magtanggal sa inyo kung sa tingin ko hindi na kayo nagpa-function well. Okay? So that's the power of appointment. Next, power of control. According to your section 17, the president has the power of control over all executive departments, bureaus, and offices, and all cabinet members, other subordinate officers, and the employees of the government. So class, if we're talking about the executive department, of course, kung si presidente ang pinakamataas sa executive department, siya rin ang may kapangyarihan para i-oversee kung ano yung nangyayari sa executive offices. So say for example, yung mga yung cabinet members ninyo, yung mga Secretary of DepEd, Secretary of DOH, Secretary of DOJ. So in that sense, class, say for example, may reklamo kayo halimbawa sa isang cabinet member or any officials ng executive department. Ang presidente ang merong direct control sa kanila. Siya lang ang merong kapangyarihan para magdikta ng kung ano yung dapat nilang course of action. So kung galit kayo halimbawa kay Secretary Briones, definitely si Presidente Duterte, ang magsasabi lang ng kung ano mga dapat mangyari. Pero class, kahit anong gustuhin ninyo na matanggal ang isang tao, or pinagsabi niyo nire-resign or gusto niyo tanggalin yung isang tao sa kanyang posisyon. So for example, si Secretary Duque or Secretary Briones, presidente pa rin ang merong hawak niyan. So kung gusto niyo magkaroon ng ng pagbago doon, ang kakalampagin ay yung presidente. Otherwise, kung say for example, kagaya na nangyayari sa administrasyon ngayon, kung kampante pa rin ang presidente sa kanyang cabinet members, definitely mag-i-stay yan despite of the calling. And that is also the reason kung bakit nandyan pa rin si Duque and nandyan pa rin si Briones. Okay? Alright. Under Section 18 class. So Section 18 would be your military power. So just like what I've mentioned, the president is actually the chief of the AFP or the commander-in-chief of AFP or the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Okay? The military power of the president includes the following. First, to call out the members of the AFP to prevent or suppress lawless violence, invasion, or rebellion. So class, again, lawless violence, ibig sabihin yan, wala nang sinusunod na batas dun sa lugar na yon. So if you are the president, definitely you can call out the members of the AFP para sugpuin ito. Your lawless violence, invasions, for example, merong nagtatangka na na-invade yung ating bansa, definitely pwedeng ipatawag ang AFP. And of course, when times of rebellion is happening. Okay? So also, the president has the power to suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus. So, class, writ of habeas corpus is definitely the principle in which ang nagsisinasabi rito ay kailangan ma-produce yung body. So, see for example, merong isang kriminal na tinutugis, pag merong writ of habeas corpus or hindi siya sinuspend, pag may privilege ng writ of habeas corpus, whether patay or buhay yung tao, no, depending on the on the circumstance, kailangan maipakita pa rin yung kanyang katawan. Kasi kung hindi na ipakita yung kanyang katawan, automatic invalid yung naging operation ng ating military. Okay? So ulitin ko, if there is writ of habeas corpus, which literally translates to produce the body, kailangan maipakita yung katawan, no? Buhay man or patay, depending on the situation, no? In order for us na masabi na naging valid yung operation. So, pero hindi ko sinasabi na pwedeng patayin ng military agad-agad yung mga kriminal or yung mga tao na kung saan pinaghihinalaan ng mga bagay-bagay. Okay? So, depending pa rin yan, that would be a case-to-case basis. And lastly, class, the power to declare martial law is also being vested to the President of the Philippines. Okay? So, you might also ask, when can the President declare martial law? So, madalas itong pinag-usapan kahit ng mga nakaraang taon, lalo na tinatanong ang Administrasyon Duterte kung sila magdedeklara ng martial law, at actually dineklara niya ito sa Mindanao. So let's go ahead and take a look into the following conditions. So kailangan daw, in order for the President to declare martial law, there are 3 existing conditions na nangyayari. So the first one, in case of rebellion and when public safety requires it. So kung may rebellion. Next, in case of invasion and when public safety requires it. And in case of rebellion and invasion and when public safety requires it. So class, if we're talking about rebellion, hindi ito nangangahulugan na ito yung karaniwan na sinasabi ng mga ka-DDS dyan, na pag sinabing rebellion, ito yung tumutuligsa na agad sa gobyerno. Hindi sapat na magsalita, na ang sinasabi lang natin ay nagsasalita. Hindi yun rebellion. No? You can actually criticize the government. Pero sir, ano po yung tinatawag nating rebellion? Pag merong rebellion, class, ang rebellion kasi, ito yung mga tipo na gusto mo nang pabagsakin ang Pilipinas, hindi ang gobyerno. Uulitin ko ha, hindi gobyerno ang usapin natin dito, kundi yung buong bansa. So for example, yung grupo halimbawa ng Maute, nung time na nagkakaroon ng rebellion sa Mindanao. No, so definitely ang ginawa nila doon, pinababa nila yung bandila ng Pilipinas, pinalitan nila ng itim na bandila, and that would actually be a situation wherein nagre-rebel na sila, no? Nang gusto nilang mangyari, pabagsakin na yung ating yung ating bansa and sila yung magte-take over. So since the public safety also required the action of the president, so definitely in that sense pwede magdeklara. Pero kung ang pamantayan mo, class, kung ang pamantayan mo ay sinasabi niyo na nagre-red tag halimbawa yung administrasyon, that would not suffice the condition of the president para magdeklara ng martial law. Okay? So ayan. If we're talking about the limitations naman ng military power, so ito yung mga yan, If and when the president declares martial law, the following must be observed. First, the president needs to report to the members of the Philippine Congress within 48 hours of the declaration of martial law. So kailangan daw may notify yung Philippine Congress doon tungkol sa sa kanyang pagdeklara ng martial law in order for them to be notified as well. Okay? Kasi ito ay usapin din ng gobyerno at hindi presidente ang solely na magde-decide with regards to that. Okay? The martial law declared must also not exceed 60 days. Okay? So class, if the president wants to extend the martial law declared, he or she must ask the permission of the members of the Philippine Congress. So if you can still remember, class, nung time na nagdeklara ng martial law sa Mindanao, hindi lang ito naging 60 days. Pero anong ginawa ng Administrasyon Duterte noon? So in order for them to extend yung martial law, kailangan agree yung members of the Philippine Congress. And since they have the numbers sa Philippine Congress, definitely na-extend ito, humaba yung pagdeklara ng martial law. So hindi lang siya naging 60 days. So again, hindi pwedeng presidente lang magsasabi na extended yung inyong martial law. Hindi pwede 'yon. Kailangan yung martial law ay maibigay yung plano ng presidente sa members of the Philippine Congress in order for it to be extended. Next, the declaration of martial law does not necessarily suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus. Pero class, kahit bakit iniisip ng mga tao na pag mayroong martial law, nasususpend yung writ of habeas corpus? It is simply because karaniwan siyang ginagawa ng presidente, Ano nangyayari kapag walang writ of habeas corpus, you may ask, During the time of Marcos, no, ni Ginoong Marcos, nung time na nanunungkulan siya, pag nakadeklara, pag sinuspend ang writ of habeas corpus, no, ang nangyayari doon, kahit no, hindi nila may pakita yung katawan ng taong tinutugis nila, automatic that is a valid operation. Kaya nga meron tinatawag na desaparecidos or yung mga nawawalang tao nung time ng martial law. Bakit bigla silang nawala? It is simply because ang sinasabi ng militar, no, lumaban tapos ayun nasupil na nila, napatay nila pero hindi na nila nakita. And that would be valid if, say for example, ang writ of habeas corpus would be suspended. So just be vigilant with regards to the martial law when it is being declared. Okay? All right. Next, Section 19, pardoning power. So with the pardoning power, the President may grant reprieves, commutations, and pardons and remit fines, forfeitures after conviction by final judgment. He shall also have the power to grant amnesty with the concurrence of a majority of all the members of the Congress. So class, if you can still remember, no, medyo sariwa pa ito yung kay Pemberton. Bakit siya nakalaya? It is simply because pinardon siya ng inyong presidente, no, ni Ginoong Duterte. Dahil siya ay pinardon, automatic sinasabi, actually ang binigay ni Duterte ay absolute pardon. Ibig sabihin as if na walang nangyari, no, na krimen. So definitely marireprieve siya sa lahat ng kanyang pananagutan sa atin, no? Kung magbigay ng pardon ng presidente, lalong-lalo kapag absolute, so definitely, no, wala na tayong hahabulin sa tao na yun kasi as if na walang nangyari. Okay? But take note class that a president, okay, can only give a pardon to a person na nagkaroon na daw ng final judgment. So kung ongoing yung kaso, automatic hindi pa siya pwedeng i-pardon. Kaya ngayon yung sinasabi dati ni yung sinasabi dati ni Duterte na ipapardon niya si Gloria, no? Hindi siya possible kasi inimbestigahan pa lang, no? So in that sense, no, in order for you to pardon someone, there must be a final judgment. But of course, if just in case na mag-grant din ng amnesty, sinasabi diyan na hindi pwedeng presidente lang, no, kailangan ng concurrence ng majority ng lahat ng miyembro ng inyong Philippine Congress. Okay? So that's pardoning power. Section 22, which is your budgetary power, the President shall submit to the Congress within 30 days from the opening of every regular session as the basis of a general appropriations bill, a budget of expenditures and sources of financing, including receipts from existing and proposed revenue measures. So class, to give you an insight, kung sakaling hindi pa ito na-discuss ng inyong nung inyong junior high school or iba yung subjects na social science, General Appropriations Bill class, this would actually be your bill na kung saan, no, ibinibigay or ipinapanukala yung magiging national budget ng ating bansa sa susunod na taon. So what happens with this one? The President actually has the budgetary power. So, ang Presidente daw ang magbibigay ng basis, no? Gaano kalaki yung ibibigay, say for example, sa DOJ, sa DepEd, no? Sa ano pa ba yung iba? The DILG, no? Lahat ng 'yan, definitely Presidente ang magsasabi kung ano ba yung basis, ano ba yung baseline. That's why class, if you can still remember, the administration is also being criticized kung bakit daw nagkulang-kulang daw tayo ng pera. It's simply because if you will go back to the history of this administration, no, nabawasan yung calamity funds natin. No? Bakit nabawasan? Because the priority of the administration ay hindi yung calamity fund. No? And that what happened, that is why the administration is being criticized. Okay? It is simply because it is the power of the executive to have the basis for your budget. Okay? So that's section 22. Now, let's go to section 20. The President also has the power to enter into contract and guarantee foreign loans. So the authority to contract and guarantee foreign loans, again class, is an exclusive executive function. The power is exercised without the need of prior congressional approval. If we're talking about the contract which involves foreign loans or guaranteeing foreign loans, definitely ito ay sole responsibility ng executive department. However, as it is being said there must be a concurrence of monetary board of BSP. So if say for example, sinabi ng BSP na President hindi pwede, so definitely hindi siya pwede magpatuloy. Kailangan daw yung monetary board mag-agree din sa Presidente. However, class, kahit ganun yung sitwasyon natin, no, the Congress must also have has the power, no, to check whether or not tama ba yung ine-enter na contract or yung foreign loans because of the principles of check and balance kaya nga sinasabi ko kanina. Kasi baka mamaya, no, meron palang maling ginagawa. So in that sense, pwede sila mag-conduct ng investigation, but take note that that must be done in aid of legislation. So we will be talking about that with your Article 6 later on. Okay? All right. So Section 21 would be the power to enter into treaty or international agreements. The Philippine Constitution provides that no treaty or international agreement shall be valid and effective unless concurred in at least 2/3 of all the members of the Senate. So there is no need for legislative concurrence with regards to executive agreements. If we're talking about executive agreements, class, ito ay tungkol lamang sa pagkakasundo ng chief executive. So say for example, kung nagkakasundo lang yung Presidente ng Pilipinas at yung Presidente ng United States on a certain matter na hindi naman involve yung buong yung buong gobyerno or yung buong bansa, definitely pwede siya. But if we're talking about the treaty, no, say for example, yung treaty on the climate change. So dahil apektado yung buong bansa, hindi lang executive department, no, pati yung legislative and even our judiciary, definitely class, no, kailangan ng concurrence ng at least two-thirds ng lahat ng miyembro ng Senate. Okay, so that's section 21 of your Article 7. So you might ask as well, sir, are there any situations wherein we can file impeachment against the president? Of course, there would be grounds for impeachment for the president, and let me go ahead and enumerate some of it. Okay, so culpable violation of the Constitution, class. Take note that the primary obligation of a president is definitely to uphold the Constitution. Kung hindi niya sinusunod ang Constitution, that may be a ground for impeachment. Treason or pagiging taksil sa bayan, so that's a ground. Bribery, no, panunuhol. Graft and corruption. Betrayal of public trust. Pag say for example, hindi na nagtitiwala yung bansa or hindi na nagtitiwala yung mga tao sa presidente, definitely pwede siya maging ground for impeachment. And other high crimes kung tawagin. Ito yung mga heinous crimes. No? Say for example, pumatay siya, nagkaroon halimbawa ng genocide, definitely that is a ground for impeachment. So class, that would actually be your Article 7 of your 1987 Constitution. On our next discussion, we'll be talking about your legislative department. But for now, let me thank everyone for listening and I'll see you on the next session.